Sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die. It's fun to be a vampire as we take a fun and frightful look at the 1987 genre classic, The Lost Boys. In the coastal California town of Santa Carla, things are not all as they seem when Lucy, Michael, and Sam Emerson move in with their quirky grandpa following Lucy's unfortunate divorce. Trying to fit into their new surroundings, Lucy is endeared by video store owner Max, getting a job and a relationship with him, while Michael is ensnared to the beautiful Star and her bad boy boyfriend David, who leads a dangerous motorcycle gang. However, Sam quickly encounters Edgar and Ellen Frog, who attend the local comic book store, and are convinced that Santa Carla is infested with vampires. This soon proves to be true as David initiates Michael into his group, who are all blood-sucking immortals who feed on the innocent to survive. Now the Emerson boys and the Frog brothers must find a way to fight and destroy every vampire in Santa Carla and save Michael, Star, and the youngster Laddie from becoming full-fledged creatures of the night. So The Lost Boys released to cinemas across the United States on July 31st, 1987, at a very interesting metamorphosis through its development process, with Richard Donner originally attached to direct the film as a solely kids-focused vampire film, similar to the vein of his previous film, The Goonies, but Donner had stuck around on the project for a very long time and ultimately lost a lot of his own personal zeal about directing the film himself, and so his wife and producer Lauren Schuler Donner had suggested director Joel Schumacher take on the helm of the film, while Richard Donner stayed on as producer, and Schumacher had looked over the script and really kind of felt like he wanted to push the age ranges up to a teenage level to add in many different types of qualities of the film, make it a little bit more adult, a little bit more R-rated, while still having a fine balance of various different things to still make it certain kid-friendly, but also have much more mature themes in the film. And he was given an $8.5 million budget for this film by Warner Brothers, and the film ultimately does very much exceed that $8 million budget by a great margin, with a large cast of highly talented people in front of and behind the camera, and not the least of which is Joel Schumacher directing this film, because a lot of people give Schumacher a lot of shit, even to this day, about his Batman and Robin fiascos, but the fact of the matter is, you have to remember, Schumacher has made some very excellent films in his career that definitely deserve to have a lot of praise and credit given to the man for being a very good, if not slightly inconsistent director. But the fact of the matter is, even this early on, he'd already made a film like St. Elmo's Fire, which really did prepare him a lot for the type of cast he would deal with in The Lost Boys, and deliver a very fantastic film with a wide array of highly talented actors at his disposal here. But first and foremost, so many of the things that were injected into the screenplay after Schumacher had decided to switch the focus film to a much more teenage-centric story, added in a lot more different types of things to really kind of make it so much more of a relatable type of film, with the whole thing of the Emerson family coming into this brand new town, fish out of water type of thing, and they don't know anyone here, and each one of them have their own search for a certain social acceptance, something like that, to fit in somewhere, whether it is Sam with the Frog Brothers, or the mother with Max and everything, or especially Michael trying to fit in with the gang headed up by David and everything. They're all trying to find those avenues into some place where they fit very comfortably into this completely different setting and environment than they've had before, usurping their own lives into this new setting. And just a very interesting thing how there's so many little themes going on in this film, with the sense of family, the social acceptance, various different things in this film just weave in very much here and there to drive the motivations of the characters forward to where they end up in this film, interacting with the characters that they do in Santa Carla. And it is Michael's story here that very much is the core focus of the entire film, with him getting initiated into this group and having the seduction going on between him and Star that relationship and all these different things really kind of create the great core of this film overall, with the dramatic storylines and the very sensual type of stuff going on as well. The very alluring appeal of this film is very much centered within that storyline, and you get a fantastic actor here in Jason Patric heading up this film after getting kind of pulled along a little bit by Joel Schumacher to really come into the film to really be convinced to take on the role here of Michael Emerson. And Jason Patric is an excellent actor. He's done some phenomenal parts that really challenge him on a great deal of stuff, and he does a fantastic job here as Michael. You see at the start of the picture that Michael seems like a fairly well-balanced teenager and good big brother, but obviously as the thing moves along, he definitely gets tempted into that darker, more dangerous type of area, getting led along by the character of David, dragged and pulled and tempted towards becoming a vampire in this film. And just interesting how that kind of descent really kind of works into the whole character and everything. How you see the character has that conflict, that turbulence within him. How he's kind of struggling with it all as the film goes along. How he gets pulled further and further and gets a little bit more overwhelmed with the hunger and everything towards the bloodlust. But he keeps fighting it and fighting it. But it's such a great struggle that you see Jason Patric is able to externalize and show the subtlety in his performance to really show a great dimensionality with the emotions and the struggle within the character of Michael, while still maintaining a character that you care about. He still has a certain charm, a certain charisma, but you very much strongly relate to this character because it is such a easily relatable type of scenario, being again in a new place, trying to fit in with a different crowd. But it's just a very solid performance that Jason Patric puts in here, still maintaining a good sense of strong heart and core with this character, that you can still see the compassion, the heart within him, especially when he's dealing with Sam. They still can see all these qualities with the character. They still cares. They doesn't want to be drawn into that soulless, demonic type of fate to himself. He still wants to clutch onto humanity and still be saved and doesn't turn into a monster. Jason Patric really does sell this film very well as a very strong lead here, as a character you definitely have to be focused and channeled into for the entire story to work as well as it does when he works opposite so many good actors here, not the least of which is Kiefer Sutherland as the character of David, just putting on an excellent performance here. That this character just has that sex appeal, that magneticism about him. There's everything you see with this character, the presence that he brings, the sort of dark, haunting quality that he just draws people into, has a attractive quality to him so much. It just creates this dark air of mystique and seduction around this character that just makes him just so much of a character that just it gravitates so much towards on the screen. Just the charisma that he has of this sort of bad boy outlaw type of thing he has going on. It just has so much of an attractive quality to it, with Kiefer Sutherland's performance injecting so much in this character between charisma and wit and certain just that dark devilish type of quality that he has. In so many moments, just like you just can't turn away from it. You're so pulled into the allure that this character has. It's just fantastic, relishing performance. Kiefer Sutherland does a fantastic, excellent piece of work in this film that definitely becomes one of his most synonymous roles in film. Kiefer Sutherland's a top-notch performance here, just working so well off of Jason Patric. Their chemistry and synergy in this film is very the hot sparks that this film really gravitates you towards, pulls you into, and that's the main conflict of the film that you really just focus into and just so much drawn towards as the film continues to go on. That is the fiery spark of everything that this film is so intent on pushing forward up to the apex of its storyline, but also working also fantastic against both of these great actors is Jami Gertz. And it was a very interesting find in that Joel Schumacher had really been looking for much more that flowery waif type of person to inhabit the role of star, but because Jami Gertz had worked with Jason Patric previously, he recommended her for the role, and she actually brought something completely different than what Joel Schumacher had envisioned for the character, adding a much more of a earthy, ethereal quality to her that just so much of a compassionate, different type of quality of this character that just adds a certain air of something different to her overall, that just has that depth of passion and compassion and so much of a sensual, romantic type of quality overall, that just a great mystique to her character as well, much different than someone like David, who's much more darker. She has a much more of a strong light within her, but also a certain tragic type of feel to her because she is a half-turned vampire, pulled towards David in fear of him. She can't go against him, so it's like this very interesting dynamic that she gets pushed and pulled between David and Michael in this film, and her chemistry with Jason Patric is absolutely wonderful here, that they just work always each other so wonderfully substantively, that they just have so many great deep interactions in this film, that they connect on such a great deeply chemistry heavy level, that everything they do in this film just feels so perfectly natural and organic. You just feel that they have that great connection. There's so much of depth between the two characters that connects with them. Even if they do have conflict, there is that deeper feeling between them that just permeates so strongly throughout the whole film. And of course we get the two Coreys in this film, along with Jameson Newlander, creating the much more of the comic relief, lighter type of characters in this film that I think the film did possibly need to reach that wider demographic appeal that it had. And just like Corey Haim as Sam Emerson just brings that quirky, fun kid quality to the film that certainly if there were younger kids actually seeing the film would so much connect with his character. And just like he is that mall fashion victim, out of place with this new setting of Santa Carla, dealing with the Frog Brothers, these two guys who are absolutely dead on serious, completely played straight in this film, as Schumacher intended that. It was his suggestion to Corey Feldman and apparently Jameson Newlander as well to really kind of watch a lot of Stallone and Chuck Norris films, and possibly a little bit of Clint Eastwood too, to look at those characters those guys portrayed, and that is your character in this film. They are commandos in this film. Serious, straight up military men waiting to do war with vampires, dead serious every second of this film. And that creates the absolute fantastic comedy that these two bring to the film. Newlander and Feldman just inhabit these characters 110%, completely straight, never stray. They're so committed to making these characters as hard-ass as possible, while still actually being terribly endearing and charming, and working so well with Corey Haim. There's just so much of great, fantastic chemistry amongst everyone in this cast, and these three are absolutely phenomenal in this film. They do bring that lighter air to the film, counterbalancing all the heavier stuff, the drama, the horror, and the comedy just adds in that great levity and the charm of the film overall. It's just so much of a thing. It does seem a bit Joel Schumacher-ish that he would bring in something like that to really kind of create that balance, that wider appeal of the film, and very much has been said by Schumacher himself. The Frog Brothers are probably his most endearing and heartfelt characters that he's ever put on screen, and just wonderful seeing these characters inhabited by these young actors of this time. And we do have a few actors in this cast who did pass away over the years, not the least of which being Corey Haim, and also Barnard Hughes portraying the fantastically funny, eclectic, eccentric grandpa in this film, absolutely putting so much zeal and so much fun and passion into his role. It's absolute joy to watch. And Edward Herrmann also passed away a few years prior, and just like he has such a great handle on the character of Max here, just make him that sort of humble, wholesome, relaxed type of guy in the film that has a certain appeal to him, that he very much is a charming type of guy with a different sort of outlook on the entire thing of vampires in this film, as trying to create a larger family dynamic. As I said before, there is a very strong focus on family in this film, and just a very interesting thing how all this stuff comes together and puts together with so many great characters portrayed by fantastic actors. Some of them we have lost possibly far too soon, but the fact of the matter is they put together a very strong legacy with at least this film alone, along with so many other roles I'm sure they portrayed equally as fantastically. It is a very strong cast that's put together by Joel Schumacher and his own crew to put together such a wonderful cast, written so beautifully, with such rich characters that everyone obviously had so much of a good time with. Even Dianne Wiest as the mother of the Emerson boys, she does a wonderful job here. Again, adding in such a great, genuine motherly quality amongst these kids, and just like everything she does feels so absolutely authentic, and just everything that's written with these characters is so well done. I think everything put together here with the characters of this film is absolutely top-notch type of stuff. But now looking behind the camera of this film, starting out with its cinematography by Michael Chapman, who had shot Taxi Driver and Raging Bull before this, Joel Schumacher definitely felt very fortunate to have this caliber cinematographer attached to a teenage vampire film. Chapman was very much a fan of the genre and was very pleased to have worked with this director on this film, with Schumacher being such a strong visualist and working with a cinematographer who had so much talent to be able to realize that vision on screen. The Lost Boys is a very, very good looking film with a great sheen of polish on it so many different ways, implementing so much of that MTV type of style to it at the time, just adding in so much of a streamlined, sleek, dynamic type of quality to its cinematography, while striking so many beautiful visuals in this film, using lighting and color schemes so much to create a very vibrant and strong type of visual in this film. I think the cinematography of this film just adds so much mood and atmosphere to this film overall, with the lighting schemes in place and so many different things that Michael Chapman is able to do with the angles and the graceful movement of the camera in this film. There's so many things that are done to just make this look like such a high-grade, well-polished type of production, that it is a credit to having so many good talents involved in this film, in front of and behind the camera, to elevate that $8.5 million budget to make it look like a $20 million film. And just the fact that I just love so many moments because of the visuals here, so much alike when they go on the motorcycles racing through the desert at night. That visual is always so energetic and intense to me, and especially in the climax of the film when you get Michael versus David, and you got that great powerful red wash over everything. That color just strikes so much of a great visual in that moment. There's so many things in this film visually that just work absolutely phenomenally. Michael Chapman just struck an impressive looking film, and obviously Joel Schumacher, being such a strong visual director, absolutely honed that talent to push it towards that style, to really inject that MTV sleekness and all that type of stuff into the visuals and the editing of this film overall, to keep it a very well-paced type of film that at no point does it ever sag. The whole thing constantly progresses its story, progresses its characters, moves the action and the horror and the humor so much forward, and it very much is the thing that this film has such a wonderful blend of those different things, that obviously you do have the whimsy of this film. So many characters do strike off so much great humor, whether it's Grandpa or the Frog Brothers or Sam. There's great moments in the film that really gives you that counterweight to the much more darker and frightening type of qualities of the film, while still injecting the energy of it all, the action the film does have, the exhilarating moments where characters get more impassioned, and various other things that just drive the whole story of the film so much forward on so many different levels to keep you wildly entertained throughout this whole film. I think the balance of it all is pretty damn good, with a few minor caveats that I'll get to a little later on, but it is just a wonderfully balanced film on so many levels there, that he's able to take all these different tones and just mesh them and meld them and put them back and forth between one another, keep all these different little storylines going between all these different characters to keep it all very cohesive and very much a very streamlined type of film. Joel Schumacher did a very impressive job putting this film together with so many of those different elements and so many different things going on with so many different characters, and just balancing out every little thing with each one of these things, including the story itself. He did a very impressive job directing the film, and had so much help behind the scenes, and it's especially evident in the effects of this film, bringing in Greg Canham to really do all the vampire makeup work in this film to create a very angular and aerodynamic look to all the vampires here that just creates a very interesting look overall that is still frightening, terrifying type of quality, but still has that sexiness about it. It's a very interesting design that still brings forth the natural features of all the actors, but still enhances that devilish, demonic type of quality with a few little adjustments to their bone structure through prosthetics that just creates a very attractive look to it, with the eyes piercing out and being the focal point, as Grant Canham had intended, to be such a striking image and just becomes so very synonymous with this film that other things in vampires after this did kind of borrow from this a little bit. I would definitely see a little bit of what Angel and Buffy the Vampire Slayer did with their vampire designs eventually, really kind of owe a little bit towards what it done on the Lost Boys here, but it was an $8.5 million budget, so it's not a vast, wide budget to do a lot of visual effects. So they did use some other tricks to actually imply the flight of these vampires in the film, really using a lot of point of view camera shots, very much going on cranes and different things, and helicopter shots, really kind of flying through the clouds at different points in time to really give the idea of flight without having to do a lot of optical composites or putting on front projection screens or whatnot. It left all that type of visual effects muscle for a few shots in the climax of the film, while everything else was very much done in a much more of a Jaws-inspired type of way, using the point of view camera shots to really imply the presence of these vampires in the film. So it's very much these filmmakers using the tools that they had in the right places, strategically using their budget where it was going to have the most impact and effect, especially when you had someone like Richard Donner here, who had done the Superman film, made you believe a man could fly, but it obviously had a lot more money to work with when he worked on Superman than what they had to work with here on The Lost Boys, so it definitely was a good, smart thing to use what they had to use to make the film work where it had to, and use the effects to the best qualities that they could instead of stretching it out across a lot of different shots. Use a few little shots to really do what you had to do in those moments, and they do look very, very good in the film. So overall, the effects in this film really range from some very ghastly makeup effects in this film, especially when you start seeing the vampires themselves get dispatched in very gruesome type of fashions, while not getting too grisly in a certain way, but you still see some very high-grade makeup effects used to dissolve and distort and destroy these vampires. It very much is ambitious and still hits all the marks it has to maintain a consistent quality across all the visual and makeup effects in this film. And of course, you could not have an MTV-inspired type of film while having a fantastic soundtrack to go with it. And it is definitely the case with the Lost Boys, employing some of the best and most talented artists of the time to contribute to the film, including In Excess, Echo and the Bunnymen, Roger Daltrey from The Who, and especially Lou Gramm from the band Foreigner, who recorded the song Lost in the Shadows and released a fantastic music video that I've watched so many damn times to get me jacked up for this film. It's such a fantastic, moody and haunting type of song that still has a great driving, rocking quality to it. It's a fantastic piece of work. And of course, there's Gerard McMann's Cry Little Sister, which is so much synonymous with this film that they actually covered it for the two unfortunate direct-to-video sequels for this film. But the fact is, the soundtrack for The Lost Boys is definitely one of the best ones that was ever created in the 80s. So many great tracks, intense, dynamic, entertaining, energetic type of songs that just inject so much life in this film, and also haunting atmospheric qualities, especially with Thomas Newman's score in this film, just adding in a certain pulsating synth quality to so many moments that just amplifies certain things that you could possibly get it very much lost in the mix of all the other pop songs in the film. But when you really look for it, Thomas Newman's work in the film just accentuates the horror moments in the film so very well. It just digs deep into the whole meat of the entire scene and just brings out again that pulsating type of quality that just creates such a fantastic feel in this film. Just great type of work with the music of this film overall. But of course, you gotta pay off all this fantastic stuff in the film, the fantastic characters, the good story that you have here, all the great artistic and technical elements have to build up to something that is very satisfying in the film, and the climax of The Lost Boys is mostly very, very good. When you get everyone converging at the house there, and you start getting the other vampires getting dispatched in very inventive type of ways, getting thrown in the bath with all the holy water in it, and just seeing him dissolve, or the death by stereo moment. There's very inventive type of things that they use so much to just amplify this film to a different level, and especially that conflict in the climax of the film between Michael and David. It's just like, that's the meat you've been waiting for this whole time. See these two clash when you see Michael turn around and he's embracing that vampire type of deeper seated type of thing within himself to bring out the inner rage that he has. That is a great conflict between these two characters that ends on a very satisfying type of note. But there is a certain thing with the very, very ending of this film, after we get the reveal of who the actual head vampire is in the film, which does have a very strong potential for a very dramatic payoff. They instead chose to go with a more comedic beat at the end of the film. That's always, when I first saw the film, it did bother me, that it did feel like it was a bit unsatisfactory, that you really do, it builds up with so much great climactic energy and dramatic type of storyline here, and you just kind of end it off with the grandpa coming in and just plowing him over, and that's the end of the film. It just felt little lukewarm. It felt little less than what I would have wanted in the film, but it does kind of leave a little bit to be desired with that beat at the end of the film. But there's just so much more with the rest of this film overall that just pulsates with so much of a great 80s MTV style, as I said, with the great sleekness, the intensity of the characters, so many different things in this film, just wide array of different feelings and tones and entertainment values you can get from this film, whether you're in the mood for something a little bit more comedic or something a little bit more dark and haunting in a certain way. There's so many different things you can grab from this film at any one certain moment. It is a fantastically entertaining film that is definitely among Joel Schumacher's best work, among films like St. Elmo's Fire, Falling Down, Phone Booth, and so many other really good films. A Time to Kill. He has done some phenomenal films in his time, and it definitely deserves to have the credit that he deserves. That he's worked his ass off to make some damn good movies, and you should definitely acknowledge him for The Lost Boys in the least, because he did a very good job making this a very successful film, with earning over $30 million at the box office. And unfortunately crushing another fantastic film that I have reviewed in The Monster Squad, which was released 2 weeks after The Lost Boys. Got absolutely crushed at the box office underneath the weight of the much more wider appealing, even though it was an R-rated film versus the PG rating of The Monster Squad. It really did get overshadowed and crushed at the box office under the weight of this pretty much a multimedia type of juggernaut in a certain way, with the soundtrack and the music video going on, and the young hot stars in the film very much appealing to both teenagers and younger kids with its wide array of cast. So many different things you can really just attribute this thing being so much of a success, but just the fact you had so many talented people involved with this film to really elevate it to the level that it was. It just came out as such a fun, entertaining, and at times bit scary type of horror film that still adds so many great things for you to enjoy time and time again. So, what are your thoughts and feelings about The Lost Boys, guys? Do you agree with me that the kind of comedic beat at the end of the film is a little bit out of left field and doesn't quite leave you with the strongest feeling possible, or what have you? I'd definitely like to hear what you guys absolutely love about this film, what your favorite characters are, or your favorite comedic beats were in The Lost Boys overall, or simply your favorite track from that phenomenal soundtrack that was put together here. So many wonderful things to discuss about this film. I hope you do it in the comments section below, and give me the fantastic thumbs up. It's always highly appreciated, guys. I'm so glad to bring this review to you guys, because it's one that should have been done a long time ago, but the fact of the matter is, it's done now. I'm very pleased to have shared The Lost Boys with you guys. So thanks for watching, guys. Spread the links around social media, and I hope to see you very, very soon, because this is only the beginning of my vampire series of reviews in this short window of time here. So, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.